Greetings, greetings. A lot of things have occurred in the time since I've last spoken to you, to me. I feel like I'm speaking to myself. It's like YouTube content. You got to keep putting it out. You got to stay consistent so you can get rich and famous. That's the goal, right? You know, I feel like as a comedian, as an aspiring comedian, that has to be the goal, is to be rich and famous, because in order to sell out shows, people got to know who you are. So I'm starting to grasp that concept, and it doesn't make me feel the best all the time, but I feel like there's an external power that's working against me as far as what I should do with my voice. And so I'm just feeling the pulls of the fear, and then the pulls of the obligation of purpose, of self, of awareness. I'm very aware that I know how to put words together, and they can be very impactful for certain groups of people. So I'm learning to channel that energy into something that's productive. I'm thinking heavily about my content and how it affects people now. Like when I walk into these rooms, I analyze the crowd a lot more than I ever have, because I don't want to come in there preaching a rhetoric or speaking a rhetoric that may be offensive, but I also understand that I can't get lost in not trying to offend people, because unfortunately, with long, elated methods of speech, human beings are more apt to saying something that may offend someone else. I think when you slice every human up and you put out their feelings, their fears, their motivations on a sheet of paper, there is a class of human beings who will be upset or offended by things that are naturally inside people. So I'm trying to understand that a part of what I'm doing, public speech, trying to gain some notoriety in public speech, is that there will always be people who will never like me, regardless of how hard I try for their approval, regardless of the things that I put out into the universe, the intentions I have behind the things I put out into the universe. People are just not gonna like me. And I'm really starting to embrace that more and more. It's really something that I've had to fight against growing up, because I feel like I was raised in a household of people who worked for entities that prided themselves on your projection of self. So that was naturally gifted to me through childhood. And it's just something that weighs in the back of my mind, as far as I want to make sure the best possible presentation is out there. But I also understand that with art, there is a freedom to art that you can't discredit. You have to give credit to the fact that art is one thing that should be made with absolute freedom. I believe that's the one medium between the human realm and the existential realm, is art, because art is why we're here. A car used to just be art at some point, and then it became real life. So we have to give credit to those people who thought outside of the box and created things that at the time may have given them flack, but in the future, or shit, they may have died with flack, and they may have never received flack. And these are the things that I'm starting to understand, is like, why are you in it? Why are you doing this? Why? And so, there's a competition going on next week for me, Portland's Funniest. It's my first round, so this should be very interesting. Last year was the first time I ever tried comedy, and it was at Portland's Funniest. So this should be a roller coaster ride of emotions for me, just given the mental and spiritual and emotional spot I was in when I first tried out here. So this will be full circle. First round competitions go good. Your goal is to bring as many people as you can to the show, and hope that they vote for you. That's basically the first round, and I think that's the second round as well. So the first two rounds are predicated on people coming out to the shows. I feel a lot more confident because now I have people who are going to come out. I think last year I just had two people show up, which was shit. for my first time, that's cool for me, This time going around, I have much more people than that, so I'm feeling confident. I'm praying that it's enough people to make it to the second round. Making it to the second round in a competition like this just indicates your status as a comedian in the city. It shows that you've been putting the work in to acquire a fan base. You've been putting the work in to master your craft, and you are confident about competing. And so I didn't have that mentality the first time going around, but now I understand that that's the mentality. And there's a very big respect around this competition. I think the last winner ended up sparking a legitimate comedy career. So this is just a good entry point for me, and I'm ready for it. There is a little bit of pregame jitters. I have my jokes that I'm going to use, but um, you know, there's a part of comedy that prides itself off of repetition, because with repetition comes perfection and your set and your craft. And there's always been a part of me that likes to do things off the cuff and freestyle a little bit. So that's another weird push and pull dynamic that goes on in my head as well. As like, okay, I've said these jokes, they've made people laugh before. Do I want to keep saying the same jokes? And I need to embrace the fact that you need to carve out the jokes that you've used that have worked and master them and put them together and bring out a good product. So it's a lot going on in that aspect of comedy right now. As far as my emotional state, I feel much more clear-headed. I'm in the summer part of my semester, and I decided to take the summer off. I went to travel with my family. That was beautiful. Going to Dominican Republic was beautiful. I mean, it was a mind-blowing experience to see real, like, black people who could speak Spanish. Like, to me, that was probably the most beautiful thing that I got from that trip, outside of the beautiful country it is. It was just like, wow, there are so many different shades of black, and there are so many different lived experiences through black skin. And so that just made me feel at home. I felt at home. I haven't felt so much at home when I've been on vacations. This is the first time I felt at home. Like, I felt like, wow, I could kind of live here almost. Like, so those things I've been contemplating on, and now that I'm back, I've been hitting the comedy scene hard, getting ready for the Portland's Funniest competition. But in the meantime, I've been taking more time to myself outside, working on my breathing exercises, trying to release like this inner work in myself. I'm continuing to practice my self-care routines, and I'm feeling like every facet of my life is starting to improve right now. And so I'm learning to deal with energy from a qualitative standpoint instead of a quantitative standpoint. So that's also cleared up a lot of space in my head as well, because I'm not worried about filling up time, but more so making the time worth it. And that's been very impactful thus far. So I'm going to continue to keep working towards mastering my time and continuing to progress in all the categories that I strive to work on. And we're just going to see how this goes. I mean, yeah, 3 days. This is really just a checkup. This is just to let to watch this back and harken back to this time in my life when I was about to do this competition, and where I was at in this moment. I'm 28, I'm approaching 29. It's an interesting time in my life, because I feel like this little cushion of, okay, 30's not at the door, it's at the next door, so it gives me a little cushion. But at the same time, I am thinking about just how am I going to transition to my 30s, and what do my 30s look like? Like, my 20s were great, from a standpoint, I went through a lot of things that may have left trauma in some facets, but I also went through a lot of things that kind of validated who I am to myself. So it was a hell of a journey, and I mean, we still got a year and some change of it left. So I really just want to make the most of this time that I have, and really embrace it, because I mean, again, you're not, these time brackets are gone here today and gone tomorrow. So it's like I need to understand the value of my youth and the power that I have, and I need to let go of those barriers that are restricting me from fully expressing my internal desires. So um, that's, I'm trying to go through a midlife crisis now. I don't want to wait till 50 to have a midlife crisis. I want to have a midlife crisis every year, basically, of me just kind of analyzing where I've been, what I've done, and that itch to be more translucent with who I am. And so we're working on it. It's a tough road. I would be remiss to say that it wasn't uncomfortable a lot of times, but I am so thankful for where I'm at, and man, I'm just very curious to see how the next chapters in my life are going to go. So thank you for all the people who have decided to stay this long to listen to me speak, and I hope that the future is on an upward trajectory of knowledge, of connections, of experiences. So I hope that whatever I'm putting out into the universe is being received in a positive manner, and is doing something splendid for your experience. So I love you,